In this video we'll show you how we can draw a step shaft and then go through into machining. So from the CAD system, from the desktop, I've started the CAD system, so I'll start a new drawing. Okay, so this is the blank sheet of paper. If I need to, I can move the datum. If I'm working on quite a long part, I might want to move my datum to a different location. So that's just reset the datum, which is normally in the center of the piece of paper. To set the units that you're working in, go to View, Properties. I'm working in millimeters. You could work in inches, but it's all the same. So the first thing to do is to draw a couple of center lines on. So to do that, I use Line, and then the second option down is Line at an angle. So this is the line which is going to act as a center line, and I need to lock this line onto the datum point. So I do that using the snap modes, which are at the bottom toolbar here, and I'm going to use near snap. So what that does is it snaps the line onto the nearest point that it can find to the cursor. Now on a blank drawing, the only point that it can find is the datum, so even if I move the cursor quite a ways away, it can only ever find the datum point. So I click to accept that. Now I need to draw another line, so I stay in Line at angle and go to the Properties tab and set the angle to 90 degrees. And again, I'm staying in near snap mode, so the line will snap onto the datum position. So having got those two lines there, I can now draw lines which are parallel to it. So I'm still in line mode, which is okay, so I just go into parallel mode. So I'll just draw up a simple step shaft. So we'll go 25mm to the left, 65mm to the left, and 100mm to the left. So those are the shoulders. That's the first shoulder, that's the second, and that's the end. So now I'll use the horizontal line and go 10mm above, 15mm above, and 25mm above. Okay, so I'm just going to use the center mouse wheel just to zoom in on there. So what we're going to have is that's the datum point there, come up, we'll have a little chamfer on the corner, put a little fillet in here, and so on. So to do any of those operations, we use these icons here: Intersect, Chamfer, and Fillet. So I'll start off using the Intersect command. Now what that does is it performs a function where lines intersect, or lines, arcs, or circles intersect. So what it actually produces will depend on the option that you've taken from the vertical toolbar. So create a move will create a move point, i.e. a point that you can subsequently lock onto. The second one down is to clip items. Third one down is clip first, so only the first item you choose will be clipped. This one here splits the items or breaks them apart at the intersection point, and this one here produces a split or a break point at the midpoint of the line. This option here is the auto function, which can be switched on or switched off. So to start with, I'll switch it off and show you how we use the option clip items. So what we need to do is, supposing we wanted a sharp corner here, so where those two lines intersect each other, we'll be clipping them, which is a term we use for trimming or extending. So the rule is that you always point to the part of the line you want to keep, not the part you want to get rid of. So looking at that entire line there, where the intersection is, I want to keep the portion below the intersection. So long as I click somewhere here, okay, that's identified the first line, and now the second line here, at the intersection point, the portion I want to keep is over here, so I point there. Okay, so that clips the lines at that intersection point. And we'll use the similar function over here. first one, second one. Right, so that's shown you just simple clipping the items. If, however, I switch on the auto function and then move the cursor into the drawing area, what that does is it will automatically find any points that intersect and perform the clipping function on those two lines. So in this case, the big blue rectangle is showing me the intersection point, and the two little tracers which move as I move the cursor are showing me the parts of the lines that will be kept after the clip operation is completed. So I simply move the cursor around until the tracers are on the two parts that I need to keep. So this is just a single click operation rather than identifying the two lines. Okay, so just to go back with that was using the auto function that you can switch on or off as you need to. So in this position here, we'll put a fillet. So we go to fillet, and from the options toolbar we choose the items that we want. So the first one is to keep the items, so the fillet gets drawn but none of the lines which are tangential to it have anything happen to them. They stay as they are. Clip items will clip, i.e. trim or extend the lines as required. So this works in exactly the same way as the intersection. I'm going to put the fillet on here, and the thing I need to decide is the lines that I want to keep. Before I do that operation, I'll just set the radius using the tab here. So I'll use 2.5. So I simply look at the intersection point and then decide the parts of the lines that I want to keep. So that's going to be this one here and that one there. Now if I increase the size of the radius, you'll be able to see this maybe a little bit clearer. So here you can see that the line or the arc is being extended as I move the cursor. So as I go over to this line here or back to this line here, so it's showing me how the fillet will be drawn. Okay. Now if I just undo that, then I'll show you the same thing, but this time switch on the auto function. So with this, it's similar to the intersection. I simply move the cursor into the drawing area, and when it finds a position where it's able to fit the fillet, it shows me the fillet drawn, and it shows me those two tracers which are confirming that these are the parts of the lines that will be kept. So that's that. So now I'll put a chamfer on this corner here. So chamfer works in exactly the same way as fillet, although it produces a chamfer rather than a fillet. But the option I want is to clip items, and the properties I want is the size of the chamfer. So in this case here, you can see how the auto function is switched on. Now if it's such that the chamfer is very small, you'll need to zoom in and then hold down the center mouse wheel and use that as a pan function, so that you're clear that you're choosing the correct position. But if you don't want to use the auto function, you switch it off and then you simply indicate the lines where you want the chamfer to appear. So the same thing can apply here if we wanted to put a chamfer on there, and the same thing could apply if we want to put the chamfer on the back face there. So the last thing to do here would be to trim these lines back to the center line. So to do that, I can use Intersect, and I'm going to use the option Clip First. So what this does is the auto function is not available because you have to choose the lines in the correct order. So looking at this line here and the horizontal one, that's the intersection point. The segment of the line I want to keep is this one, so that's the one I click on, and that line will be trimmed to the center line. and the same thing here, there to there. Okay, so we've created the geometry. If you don't want to keep the center line on, you don't need to. It doesn't matter if you keep it or not, but if you do want to delete it, then you go to delete and then simply click the line. So that's produced the geometry. The next stage is to create the profile, and then we'll take that through into machining. So to create the profile, we use the big red NC button here. The first thing you need to notice is where the datum point is. Now the datum point for the geometry will be the default datum point for machining, but if you need to change your machining datum point, you use this icon here, and therefore you can reset the machining datum to somewhere other than the drawing datum, but in most cases the two will be the same. So that's just positioned the datum. Now we need to create a profile. So a profile is a series of linked line and arc segments that the machining software is able to follow. So the first span I want to machine will be somewhere over here. So it would be unwise to create the profile going in the backward direction to the general direction that machining is taking place. So I click on the line there, and then the dialog box that is presented to me, I can leave all the defaults as they are there. One thing to bear in mind under the general tab here is that the shape is not closed, and because it's not closed, i.e. the start point is not the same as the end point, then I need to tell it where the end point is. So when I click OK, the system waits for me to indicate the end point. If I'm not sure of what the system is expecting at any time, the bottom left here next to the word PartMaster, the help message will tell me what the system is expecting. So in this case it says left click to indicate the end point of this contour or profile. So as you can see, as I move the cursor around, it's locking on to any of the points that go to make up the geometry, and I want to choose this point here. Even though I may never machine that, it's better to choose that point there and have a profile which starts and ends on the center line. So that's created the geometry and then created the profile, and we'll come on to machining in the next video.